In the quiet hum of our suburban life, I had always trusted her. Sarah and I had built a life together that many envied, 2 kids, a cozy home, and a routine that felt as comforting as a well-worn blanket. We shared laughter over dinner, whispered secrets in the dark, and navigated the chaos of parenthood as a team. But lately, a shadow had crept into my heart, a whisper of doubt that I couldn't shake off. It started innocently enough. Sarah had mentioned she was going to her sister's house for the weekend, a routine visit that had become a staple in our lives. But something felt off. The way she said it, the slight hesitation in her voice, the way her eyes darted away when I asked for details, it all felt like a puzzle with a missing piece. I brushed it off at first, attributing my unease to the stress of work and parenting. But as the days passed, the feeling festered. I had never been the jealous type. Trust was the foundation of our marriage, and I had always believed that love was built on honesty. Yet, as I sat in our living room, the glow of the television flickering in the background, I found myself reaching for my phone. The device that had once been a tool for connection now felt like a portal to the truth. I opened the location tracking app we had installed for safety reasons, an innocent measure for parents with busy lives. I hesitated, my finger hovering over her name. Was I really about to invade her privacy like this? But the nagging doubt pushed me forward. I tapped the screen, and my heart raced as the map loaded. The little blue dot representing Sarah's location blinked into view. I held my breath, praying that it would show her at her sister's house, sipping tea and laughing about old times. Instead, the dot was moving, and it was nowhere near her sister's neighborhood. Panic surged through me, a cold wave that washed away the warmth of our shared memories. I watched the dot travel further away from home, my mind racing with questions. Where was she going? Who was she with? I felt like a detective in a noir film, piecing together clues that led to a dark and twisted truth. I tried to rationalize it, maybe she had gone to pick up something, maybe she was running an errand. But deep down, I knew that this was more than just a simple detour. As the minutes turned into hours, I felt a mix of dread and determination. I couldn't just sit back and let my imagination run wild. I needed to know the truth. I grabbed my jacket and slipped out the door, the cool night air hitting my face like a slap. I had to follow her, to see for myself where this path would lead. My heart pounded in my chest as I climbed into my car, the engine roaring to life as I pulled out of the driveway. The streets were quiet, the moon casting an eerie glow on the asphalt. I drove with purpose, my mind racing with possibilities. What if she was with someone else? What if everything I believed about our marriage was a lie? The thought twisted my stomach into knots, but I pushed it aside. I had to focus on the road ahead, on the little blue dot that was my only guide. As I followed the path on my phone, I felt a strange mix of fear and adrenaline. I was crossing a line, stepping into a territory I had never imagined I would enter. But the need for answers was overwhelming. I had to know if my suspicions were justified or if I was simply losing my mind. The dot led me to a part of town I didn't recognize, a neighborhood that felt foreign and unsettling. I parked a few blocks away, my heart racing as I watched the screen. The dot had stopped moving. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I might find. I was about to uncover a truth that could shatter everything I held dear. As I sat in my car, the engine idling softly, I felt like a voyeur peering into a world that was not mine. The street was dimly lit, the shadows stretching long across the pavement, and I could see the faint outline of a house at the end of the block. My heart raced as I glanced at my phone again, the little blue dot still firmly planted in the same spot. This was it. This was where Sarah had come, and I was about to uncover the truth. I took a moment to collect myself, my mind swirling with a cacophony of emotions, fear, anger, confusion. I had always prided myself on being a rational man, someone who approached life with logic and reason. But now, I felt like a puppet on strings, pulled by the weight of my suspicions. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to step into a nightmare. I glanced at the time. It was late, and the world around me was quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves in the breeze. I had to act quickly. I pulled out my phone again, this time opening the camera app. I needed evidence, something concrete to hold onto in case my worst fears were confirmed. I felt like a detective in a crime drama, ready to capture the moment that would change everything. With my heart pounding in my chest, I stepped out of the car and made my way down the street, careful to stay hidden in the shadows. The house loomed ahead, its windows dark, but I could see a faint glow coming from the back. I crept closer, my breath hitching in my throat as I approached the side of the house. I could hear laughter, soft, melodic, and unmistakably familiar. It was Sarah's laugh. I pressed my back against the cool brick wall, my heart racing as I strained to listen. The laughter was accompanied by another voice, a man's voice, deep and smooth. I felt a chill run down my spine. Who was he? Why was he with her? I fought the urge to burst through the door and confront them, but I knew I needed to gather more information first. I needed to understand what was happening before I made a fool of myself. I moved around to the back of the house, my heart pounding louder with each step. The laughter grew louder, and I could hear snippets of conversation. They were reminiscing about old times, sharing stories that felt intimate and personal. I felt like an intruder in my own life, a ghost haunting the edges of a reality I no longer recognized. Then, I caught a glimpse of them through the window. Sarah was sitting on a couch, her hair cascading over her shoulders, her smile radiant and carefree. The man beside her leaned in closer, his hand resting casually on her knee. My stomach twisted in knots as I watched them, the scene playing out like a cruel movie reel. I felt the ground shift beneath me, the weight of betrayal crashing down like a tidal wave. I pulled out my phone, my hands trembling as I snapped a few pictures. I needed proof, something to hold on to when the anger and heartbreak threatened to consume me. But as I watched them, I felt a strange mix of emotions, anger, yes, but also a profound sadness. This was the woman I loved, the mother of my children, and here she was, sharing laughter and intimacy with another man. I stepped back, my mind racing. I had to think clearly. What was my next move? Confronting her now would only lead to chaos, and I wasn't ready for that. I needed to gather more evidence, to understand the depth of this betrayal before I made my presence known. I felt like a detective piecing together a case, but the stakes were far too personal. I decided to wait, to observe from the shadows. I leaned against the wall, my heart heavy with the weight of my discovery. The laughter continued, and I felt a pang of longing for the moments we had shared, the laughter that had once filled our home. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to steady my breathing, to push away the rising tide of emotions. As I stood there, I couldn't help but replay the moments leading up to this. The late nights at work, the missed calls, the subtle changes in her behavior. Had I been blind to the signs? Or had I simply chosen to ignore them, clinging to the hope that our love was unbreakable? The questions swirled in my mind, each one more painful than the last. Time passed slowly, and I felt the chill of the night creeping into my bones. I knew I couldn't stay hidden forever. I needed to confront her, to demand answers. But I also knew that I had to be smart about it. I couldn't let my emotions dictate my actions. I had to gather more evidence, to understand the full scope of her betrayal before I made my move. With a heavy heart, I turned away from the house, my mind racing with thoughts of what I had seen. I needed to regroup, to think clearly about my next steps. I climbed back into my car, the engine rumbling to life as I drove away from the scene of my heartbreak. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear, I was no longer the man I had been just hours before. I was a husband on the brink of a revelation, and I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The drive home felt like a blur, the world outside my window a hazy backdrop to the storm raging inside me. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles white as I replayed the scene I had just witnessed. Sarah, my Sarah, laughing and sharing a moment with another man. The image burned in my mind, a cruel reminder of the betrayal that had shattered my reality. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, one from which I couldn't wake. As I pulled into the driveway, the familiar sight of our home felt foreign. The porch light flickered softly, casting a warm glow that contrasted sharply with the coldness in my heart. I stepped out of the car, my legs heavy as I made my way to the front door. Each step felt like a march toward my own execution, the weight of the truth pressing down on me. Inside, the house was quiet. The kids were asleep, their soft breaths echoing through the hallway. I paused for a moment, listening to the peaceful sounds of their slumber. They were innocent, blissfully unaware of the turmoil that was about to engulf their world. I felt a pang of guilt wash over me. How could I confront Sarah without shattering their sense of security? But I knew I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. I made my way to our bedroom, the door creaking softly as I pushed it open. The sight of our bed, neatly made and inviting, felt like a cruel joke. I stood there for a moment, my heart racing as I contemplated my next move. Should I confront her now, while the evidence was fresh in my mind? Or should I wait until morning, when I could gather my thoughts and approach her with a clearer head? As I stood there, I felt a surge of anger rise within me. How could she do this to us? To me? The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound, and I could feel the heat of rage coursing through my veins. I wanted to scream, to shake her and demand answers. But I also knew that I needed to be strategic. I couldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment. I decided to wait. I needed to gather my thoughts, to prepare for the confrontation that was inevitable. I slipped into the living room, the darkness wrapping around me like a shroud. I sat on the couch, my mind racing as I replayed the events of the night. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the pictures I had taken. Each image felt like a dagger to my heart, a reminder of the intimacy I had lost. As I stared at the photos, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I had loved her fiercely, had trusted her completely. How could she betray that trust so easily? The questions swirled in my mind, each one more painful than the last. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of uncertainty, and I didn't know how to find my way back to the surface. Hours passed, and the weight of the night pressed down on me. I could hear the faint sound of Sarah moving around in the bedroom, the soft rustle of sheets as she settled in for the night. I felt a pang of longing for the woman I had once known, the woman who had shared my dreams and fears. But that woman felt like a distant memory, replaced by the stranger I had seen laughing with another man. Finally, as dawn began to break, I knew it was time. I had to confront her, to demand answers. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the emotional storm that was about to unfold. I walked down the hallway, each step heavy with the weight of my resolve. I pushed open the bedroom door, the light from the window spilling into the room. Sarah was lying in bed, her hair tousled and her eyes still closed. For a moment, I hesitated, the sight of her peaceful face tugging at my heart. But I quickly reminded myself of the truth I had uncovered. I couldn't let my emotions sway me now. "Sarah," I said, my voice steady but laced with tension. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open as she blinked against the morning light. "Hey, you're home early," she said, a smile spreading across her face. But the smile faltered as she took in my expression. "What's wrong?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "We need to talk." Her smile faded completely, replaced by a look of concern. "What about?" I stepped closer, my heart racing as I prepared to lay bare the truth. "I know where you were last night." Her eyes widened, and I could see the realization dawning on her face. "What do you mean?" "I saw you, Sarah." "I saw you with him," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "You weren't at your sister's house, were you?" The silence that followed felt like an eternity. I watched as her expression shifted from confusion to fear, and then to something else, something I couldn't quite place. "I can explain," she said, her voice trembling. "Explain?" I echoed, my anger bubbling to the surface. "How do you explain laughing and sharing a moment with another man? How do you explain the betrayal?" Tears welled in her eyes, and I felt a pang of sympathy, but I quickly pushed it aside. I needed answers, not excuses. "Who is he, Sarah? What's going on?" She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. I could see the struggle in her eyes, the weight of the truth pressing down on her. I felt a mix of anger and sadness wash over me, the realization that the woman I had loved was standing before me, but she was also a stranger. "I need you to tell me the truth," I said, my voice firm. "I deserve that much." The air in the room felt thick with tension, a palpable weight that pressed down on both of us. I stood there, my heart racing, as I watched Sarah struggle to find her words. The silence stretched on, each second feeling like an eternity. I could see the fear in her eyes, the realization that the facade she had maintained was crumbling before her. But I needed more than just her fear, I needed the truth. I took a step back, trying to gather my thoughts. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, confusion. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown. I had spent the night gathering evidence, piecing together the fragments of my shattered trust, and now I was faced with the woman who had betrayed me. I needed to be strong, to confront her with the clarity that had eluded me for so long. "Sarah," I said, my voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of pain. "I need you to be honest with me. I need to know what's going on between you and him." She opened her mouth to speak, but I raised a hand to stop her. "No more excuses. I want the truth, and I want it now." I could see the conflict in her eyes, the battle between the desire to protect herself and the need to be honest with me. I felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, she would choose honesty. But I also knew that the truth could be a double-edged sword, one that could cut deeper than any lie. As I waited for her to respond, I felt a surge of determination. I had to prepare myself for whatever she was about to say. I had to brace myself for the possibility that the woman I loved might not be the woman I thought she was. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. I needed to approach this confrontation with a clear mind, to avoid letting my emotions dictate my actions. I thought back to the moments we had shared, the laughter, the intimacy, the dreams we had built together. I had always believed that our love was unbreakable, that we could weather any storm. But now, standing in the aftermath of her betrayal, I felt like a ship lost at sea, adrift and uncertain. "Sarah," I said again, my voice softer this time. "I want to understand. I want to know why this happened. What led you to him?" She looked down, her hands trembling as she fidgeted with the sheets. I could see the tears pooling in her eyes, and for a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy. But I quickly pushed it aside. I couldn't afford to let my emotions cloud my judgment. I needed to stay focused on the truth. I didn't mean for it to happen," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I echoed, my voice rising in disbelief. "You call this a mistake? You were with him, Sarah. You shared laughter and intimacy with another man. That's not just a mistake, that's a betrayal." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I know it was wrong. But I felt so alone. Things have been different between us for a while now." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I had sensed the distance growing between us, the cracks forming in the foundation of our marriage. But I had hoped we could work through it, that we could find our way back to each other. I had never imagined it would lead her to another man. "Different how?" I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, her eyes darting away as if searching for the right words. "We've been so busy with the kids, with work. I felt like we were just going through the motions. I wanted to feel alive again, to feel desired." I felt a surge of anger at her words. "So you thought cheating was the answer? You thought betraying me would make you feel alive?" "I didn't think. I got caught up in the moment," she said, her voice rising in desperation. "It was never supposed to go this far. I never wanted to hurt you." I felt a mix of anger and sadness wash over me. I had always believed that love was built on trust and honesty, and now I was faced with the reality that she had chosen to betray that trust. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. I needed to remain calm, to approach this confrontation with clarity. "Sarah, I need you to understand how much this hurts me," I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. You've shattered my trust, and I don't know if I can ever get it back. I'm so sorry, she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you, I really do. I made a terrible mistake. Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of our shared history. I felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to heal. But I also knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. Trust, once broken, was not easily repaired. I need time to process this, I said, my voice firm. I can't just pretend everything is okay. We need to figure out what this means for us. She nodded, her expression filled with remorse. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. As I turned to leave the room, I felt a mix of emotions swirling within me: anger, sadness, confusion. I had confronted the woman I loved, and while I had received some answers, I knew that the journey ahead would be long and painful. I needed to take a step back, to gather my thoughts and figure out what I truly wanted. As I walked down the hallway, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I had uncovered the truth, but the truth was a double-edged sword, one that could cut deeper than any lie. I needed to find a way to navigate this new reality, to confront the pain and betrayal that had shattered my world. The air in the house felt charged with unspoken words and unresolved emotions as I stood in the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. I had confronted Sarah, and while I had received some answers, the weight of the betrayal still hung heavily in the air. I needed to gather my thoughts, to prepare for the next step in this painful journey. I took a moment to collect myself, pacing back and forth in the living room. The sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the space that had once felt like a sanctuary but now felt like a battleground. I could hear Sarah moving around in the bedroom, her soft sobs echoing through the walls. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to reassure her that everything would be okay, but I knew that would be a lie. I needed to confront her again, to dig deeper into the truth of what had happened. I couldn't let her off the hook so easily. I had to understand the full scope of her betrayal, to know how far she had gone and what it meant for our future. Taking a deep breath, I walked back to the bedroom, my heart racing as I pushed the door open. Sarah was sitting on the edge of the bed, her face buried in her hands. The sight of her vulnerability tugged at my heart, but I quickly reminded myself of the pain she had caused. "Sarah," I said, my voice steady but firm. "We need to talk about him. I need to know everything." She looked up, her eyes red and puffy from crying. "I don't want to talk about him," she said, her voice trembling. "I want to talk about us." I shook my head, frustration bubbling to the surface. "We can't talk about us until we address what happened. Who is he? How long has this been going on?" She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. "His name is Mark. We met at a work event a few months ago. It was just supposed to be a fling, something to fill the void I felt in our marriage." "A fling?" I echoed, my voice rising in disbelief. "You call this a fling? You shared your life with him, Sarah. You laughed with him, confided in him. That's not just a fling, that's a betrayal of everything we built together." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was lonely, and I thought I could find something outside of our marriage. I thought it would make me feel alive again." "Alive?" I repeated, my anger boiling over. "You thought cheating on me would make you feel alive? You've shattered my trust, Sarah. You've broken our family." "I'm so sorry," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I never wanted to hurt you. I love you, I really do. I made a terrible mistake." Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of our shared history. I felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to heal. But I also knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. Trust, once broken, was not easily repaired. "Did you ever think about what this would do to me? To our kids?" I asked, my voice trembling with emotion. "Did you ever consider the consequences of your actions?" "I didn't think," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I was caught up in the moment, and I didn't consider how it would affect you or the kids. I was selfish. Selfish, I repeated, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. That's an understatement. You've turned our lives upside down for a moment of pleasure. How do you expect me to trust you again? I'll do whatever it takes to make this right, she said, her voice filled with desperation. I'll go to counseling, I'll be open and honest with you. I'll do anything to prove that I love you. I felt a mix of anger and sadness wash over me. I had always believed that love was built on trust and honesty, and now I was faced with the reality that she had chosen to betray that trust. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. I needed to remain calm, to approach this confrontation with clarity. Sarah, I need time to process this, I said, my voice firm. I can't just pretend everything is okay. We need to figure out what this means for us. She nodded, her expression filled with remorse. I understand. I'll give you the space you need. But please, don't give up on us. As I turned to leave the room, I felt a mix of emotions swirling within me, anger, sadness, confusion. I had confronted the woman I loved, and while I had received some answers, I knew that the journey ahead would be long and painful. I needed to take a step back, to gather my thoughts and figure out what I truly wanted. I walked down the hallway, my heart heavy with the weight of my resolve. I had uncovered the truth, but the truth was a double-edged sword, one that could cut deeper than any lie. I needed to find a way to navigate this new reality, to confront the pain and betrayal that had shattered my world. As I sat on the couch, I felt the tears welling up in my eyes. I had loved her fiercely, had trusted her completely. But now, standing in the aftermath of her betrayal, I felt like a ship lost at sea, adrift and uncertain. I needed to find a way to reclaim my sense of self, to confront the pain and betrayal that had shattered my world. The sun began to rise outside, casting a warm glow over the room. I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I also knew that I had to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I had to find a way to heal, to reclaim my life and my sense of self. The days that followed the confrontation felt like a blur, a whirlwind of emotions that left me feeling disoriented and raw. I had opened the floodgates to a reality I never wanted to face, and now I was left to navigate the aftermath of Sarah's betrayal. Each morning, I woke up with a heavy heart, the weight of our shattered trust pressing down on me like a leaden blanket. Sarah had given me space, as I had requested, but the silence between us was deafening. We moved through the house like ghosts, avoiding each other's gaze, the air thick with unspoken words. I could feel the tension hanging in the air, a constant reminder of the fracture in our relationship. The laughter that once filled our home had been replaced by an uncomfortable stillness, and I found myself longing for the days when we were a united front, partners in every sense of the word. I spent hours lost in thought, replaying the events of that fateful night over and over in my mind. I had seen the truth with my own eyes, and yet I still struggled to reconcile the woman I loved with the one who had betrayed me. I found myself questioning everything, our past, our present, and our future. How could I trust her again? How could I look at her without seeing the man who had taken her away from me? The kids were blissfully unaware of the turmoil that surrounded us. I watched them play, their laughter echoing through the house, and I felt a pang of guilt wash over me. They deserved a happy home, a place filled with love and trust. But how could I provide that when my own heart was in turmoil? I knew I had to put on a brave face for their sake, to shield them from the storm that raged within me. One evening, as I sat on the couch, I felt a familiar presence beside me. Sarah had joined me, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "Can we talk?" she asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my heart racing as I prepared for another round of difficult conversations. "What do you want to say?" "I've been thinking a lot about everything," she began, her voice trembling. "I know I hurt you, and I can't take that back. But I want to do everything I can to make it right. I want to go to counseling, to work on our marriage. I love you, and I don't want to lose you." Her words hung in the air, a fragile lifeline thrown into the turbulent waters of our relationship. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, the desperation to rebuild what had been broken. but I also felt the weight of my own pain, the scars that would take time to heal. "I appreciate that, Sarah," I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "But it's going to take time. Trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight. I need to process everything that's happened." "I understand," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I'll be patient. I just want you to know that I'm committed to making this work. I'll do whatever it takes." As I looked into her eyes, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to heal. But I also knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. I had to be honest with myself about my feelings, about the pain that lingered in the shadows. In the weeks that followed, we began to navigate the difficult terrain of rebuilding our relationship. We attended counseling sessions together, where we confronted the issues that had led to Sarah's infidelity. It was painful, raw, and often uncomfortable, but I could see the determination in her eyes. She was willing to put in the work, to face the consequences of her actions. I found myself grappling with my own emotions, trying to untangle the web of love and betrayal that had ensnared me. There were moments of anger, moments of sadness, and moments of hope. I learned to express my feelings, to communicate openly about my fears and insecurities. It was a slow process, but with each session, I felt a little more empowered to confront the pain. As time passed, I began to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with. Sarah was making an effort to reconnect, to show me that she was committed to our marriage. We shared laughter again, tentative at first, but gradually growing more genuine. I found myself remembering the reasons I had fallen in love with her in the first place, the warmth of her smile, the kindness in her heart, the way she made me feel alive. But the scars of betrayal remained, a constant reminder of the fragility of trust. I knew that healing would take time, and there would be setbacks along the way. There were nights when I lay awake, haunted by memories of her laughter with another man, and I felt the familiar pang of jealousy rise within me. But I also knew that I had to confront those feelings, to acknowledge them without letting them consume me. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, I turned to Sarah and said, "I want to believe that we can get through this. I want to believe that we can rebuild our marriage. But I need you to understand that it's going to take time." "I understand," she replied, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I'm willing to wait. I love you, and I want to prove to you that I can be the wife you deserve." As I looked into her eyes, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. Maybe we could find a way to heal, to reclaim the love that had been overshadowed by betrayal. It wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to try. Together, we would navigate the difficult terrain of rebuilding our relationship, one step at a time. In the end, I realized that love was not just about trust, it was also about resilience. It was about facing the storms together, about finding a way to weather the darkest nights. And as we embarked on this journey of healing, I knew that we would emerge stronger, more united than ever before.